Welcome to Cheater Fallout. Let us get started with today's story. My wife set a positive pregnancy test on the kitchen table between us and told me to act surprised when her mother called. I looked at that little pink cross for a long time. Then I smiled and said congratulations. She thought she was handing me a future. She had no idea she was handing me a receipt. Because I already knew the baby wasn't mine. I already knew whose it was, and I had already decided exactly how this was going to end. But let me back up, because the smile came later. The fight came first. It started 3 weeks earlier, on a Thursday, when Reagan walked into the kitchen in a dress I'd never seen, holding an overnight bag. "Bianca's Bachelorette weekend," she said, like I should already know. I looked up from helping our son Micah with his spelling words. Weekend? I thought it was one night. It's 2, maybe 3. We're doing a lake house. I put the pencil down. We have a 7-year-old. You didn't ask me. You told me. She rolled her eyes. I'm not asking permission to see my best friend get married. It's not about permission. It's about the fact that you planned 3 days away, and I found out from a duffel bag. That's when her voice changed, sharp and rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the car. I got married young. I had a kid young. I am not going to spend the rest of my life apologizing for wanting one weekend that's mine. I stood up slowly. Nobody asked you to apologize. I asked you to talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. She grabbed her keys. Don't wait up. And here's the thing that stuck with me later, the thing I couldn't shake. At the door, she stopped, turned, and looked at me with something I didn't recognize. Not guilt, not love, something colder, like she was measuring me. Then she left. I told myself it was just a fight. Couples fight. I put Micah to bed, watched half a movie, and fell asleep on the couch. Normal. What I didn't know was that while I was pulling a blanket over my son, my whole life had already tipped over the edge. I just hadn't heard it hit the ground yet. Reagan came home Sunday afternoon, a full day later than she said. That was the first crack. She dropped her bag by the stairs and wouldn't meet my eyes. Long weekend, I said. We stayed an extra night. Everyone was too hungover to drive. She used to tell me everything, in detail, without me asking. Now she gave me fragments. That was the second crack. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched a stranger move into my wife's body. She slept with her phone face down and took it into the bathroom. She laughed at texts and locked the screen when I walked in. One night at dinner, Micah said, "Mom, you're not listening." And she wasn't. She was somewhere else entirely, somewhere I couldn't follow. I didn't accuse her. I want you to understand that, because it matters for everything that came after. I didn't yell. I didn't snoop. Not yet, because I'd learned something a long time ago from my father, who caught my mother the same way. He said, "When you already know, you stop asking questions. You start collecting answers." So I collected. I noticed she'd stopped wearing her ring to the gym. I noticed a charge on our joint card for a pharmacy at 11 p.m. on the Saturday of the party, 60 miles from the lake house. And I noticed that when I mentioned Bianca's wedding, which was only a month away, Reagan flinched. A tiny flinch. But I saw it. Then came the kitchen. The test. The smile. "I'm pregnant," she said. And she said it like a dare, watching my face for the reaction she wanted. And I gave her the wrong one. I hugged her. I said we'd figure out the timing at the doctor. I asked how far along, and she said, "Just a few weeks," and looked at the floor. A few weeks. I did the math standing right there, my chin on her shoulder so she couldn't see my eyes. We hadn't been together in over a month. Not since before the party. There was no version of this where the numbers worked, but I didn't say a word. Because the second she saw doubt, she'd start building a story, and I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her certain she'd gotten away with it. A comfortable liar gets sloppy, and she did. She started leaving her phone on the counter again, face up, because she'd convinced herself I was too dense to notice anything. She started saying his name without meaning to. Little slips. A friend from the party. Someone Bianca knows. Always the same someone. One night, she came out of the bathroom mid-call and didn't realize the shower had drowned out the first 10 seconds of the door opening. I heard 4 words before she saw me. "I told you." "He doesn't." Then she froze, said work stuff, and hung up. I nodded and went back to folding Micah's laundry like a man who hadn't heard a thing. Inside, I was writing it all down, because every slip was a brick, and I was building something she couldn't see yet. Micah felt it before I said anything to it. Kids always do. "Why is Mom mad all the time?" he asked me one night, and I told him she was just tired, and I hated that I had to lie to my own son to protect him from hers. That was the moment I stopped feeling any hesitation about what came next. That night, while she showered, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I didn't grab it. I just read the banner. No name, just a number, and a message. "You can't tell her. It ends both of us." I locked the screen and set it back down exactly as I'd found it. Ends both of us. Not both of you. Both of us. Whoever this was, he had something to lose too. Something big. That single word rearranged everything I thought I knew, and I lay awake all night turning it over. Who has as much to lose as a pregnant married woman? The next morning, I called a man named Dave Kessler. Dave and I served together, and after he got out, he did the kind of quiet work you don't advertise. Backgrounds, paper trails, the occasional photograph nobody wanted taken. "I need a name behind a number," I told him, "and everything you can pull on a lake house rental and a hotel the weekend of the 11th. Dave didn't ask why. He never does. Give me 48 hours. While I waited, I kept my routine boring on purpose. I made pancakes. I coached Micah's Saturday soccer. I told Reagan the baby news made me want to renew our vows, and I watched something flicker across her face that I can only describe as panic wearing a smile. She was trapped by her own lie now, and she knew it. Good. 2 days later, Dave called. "You sitting down? Just tell me. The number belongs to a guy named Grant DeLuca." He paused. "You're going to want to look him up." I did, and the floor dropped out. Grant DeLuca was Bianca's fiancé. The groom. The man my wife's best friend was marrying in 3 weeks. My wife hadn't cheated with a stranger at the bachelorette party. She'd cheated with the groom at the celebration of his own wedding in a lake house full of her closest friends. "There's more," Dave said. "This wasn't a one-night mistake. I pulled the numbers activity going back 4 months. They'd been talking since before he even proposed to Bianca. Long calls, always when your wife told you she was at the gym or running errands. The bachelorette weekend wasn't when it started. It was just when they got careless. I let that land. 4 months. So while I was making pancakes and coaching soccer and believing I had a marriage, my wife had been running a second life in the margins of mine, and the man on the other end was about to marry her best friend to keep his own cover. "One more thing," Dave added. "There's a payment. 3 days after the party, Grant sent your wife money. Not a lot. Enough to say handle it. I think he wanted the pregnancy gone and she wouldn't do it, because a baby was leverage and she knew it. That was the piece that turned my stomach. The baby wasn't an accident either. To her, it was insurance. The lake house was Grant's family's property. Your wife's card hit a pharmacy the night of the 11th. But here's the part that matters. The reservation for the extra night, the one she said the whole group stayed for, it was 2 people. Her and him. Everyone else checked out Saturday morning. She stayed an extra night alone with the groom. I set the phone down and stood in my kitchen and felt something in me go very quiet and very still. Not rage. Rage is loud and stupid and gives you away. This was the opposite. This was clarity. Because now I didn't just have a cheating wife. I had a cheating wife, a lying groom, and a bride who had no idea she was about to marry a man who'd gotten someone else pregnant at her own party. I had all the pieces. And I realized the most complete revenge wasn't something I'd have to build. It was something I'd only have to reveal. But I wasn't ready yet. Reveal too early, and it looks like a bitter husband throwing accusations. So I did 3 things first. In order, cold, and quiet. First, I called a lawyer, a woman named Nadia Korse who came recommended for being ruthless and unbothered. I laid it all out. She asked one question. "Do you want to survive this, or do you want to win it?" "I want to win it." "Then don't touch a single confrontation until the paperwork is armored. Move your money. Document the timeline." Second, I did exactly that. I moved half of our joint savings into an account in my name only. Not hidden. Protected. I started a folder. Dates, screenshots, the pharmacy charge, the reservation, Dave's report. And I ordered a legal paternity kit, the kind a judge accepts. Third, and this is the part I'm not proud of, but I'd do again, I let Reagan keep planning. She wanted to announce the pregnancy at Bianca's wedding. "It'll be so beautiful," she said, sharing our news at B's big day. And I said yes. I said, what a perfect idea. Because she just handed me the exact stage I needed. The DNA results came back in 10 days. I'll never forget reading them in my truck in a parking lot, engine off. Probability of paternity, 0%. I already knew. But knowing and seeing are different animals. And for about a minute, I let myself feel all of it. The whole 7 years, before I folded the paper, put it in the folder, and turned the key. From that point on, I felt nothing but focus. I told Reagan I'd take care of the DNA test quietly so we'd have official records for the baby. She thought it was sweet. She had no idea I already held the results, and that they were the least of what I was holding. The night before the wedding, I did the only thing that still bothers my conscience. I called Bianca. I told her I needed to see her before her big day, that it was important, that it was about Grant. She thought I was going to give some heartfelt speech about marriage. When I sat across from her in her kitchen and slid the folder over, she went white. She read the reservation with 2 names. She read the pharmacy charge. She read the paternity results with a due date that lined up with her own Bachelorette weekend, and Grant's number in the corner of a screenshot that said it ends both of us. "This could be fake," she whispered. But she didn't believe it. I could see she didn't. "Call the lake house," I said gently. "Ask who stayed the extra night. Ask them yourself. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to check." She made the call right there while I sat in her kitchen. I watched her face change as the manager confirmed it. 2 guests. Sunday checkout. Grant DeLuca and Reagan. She put the phone down and didn't cry. She got quiet. The same quiet I'd found in myself 2 weeks earlier. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "You deserve to know before you signed your life to him, that's all. What you do with it is yours." I stood up to leave, and she said one thing that told me she understood exactly what kind of revenge this was. "You're not going to say a word tomorrow, are you?" "No," I said. "I don't have to." The wedding was set for 4 in the afternoon. Reagan spent the morning glowing, practicing the little announcement she planned to make at the reception, one hand resting on a stomach that was carrying the groom's child. She had no idea the bride already knew. I wore the suit. I smiled for the photos. I held Micah's hand. And I waited. At 3:40, 20 minutes before the ceremony, Bianca walked out of the bridal suite in her full gown, calm as still water, and asked everyone to gather in the garden for an announcement. Reagan lit up, thinking this was her moment, thinking Bianca was about to hand her the microphone. Bianca took the microphone herself. "Before we begin," she said, her voice perfectly level, "I want to thank everyone who came to celebrate love and honesty, especially honesty." She looked directly at Grant. "There isn't going to be a wedding." The garden went silent. 2 months ago, the man I almost married slept with my best friend at the Bachelorette party she threw for me. She's pregnant. It's his. I have the reservation, the timeline, and the paternity test. I'm not going to marry a liar, and I'm not going to pretend in front of 200 people to spare anyone's feelings. Then she set the microphone down, took off the ring, placed it on the seat where Grant would have sat, and walked out. I have never heard a silence like that. I watched Reagan's face come apart in real time. She turned, searching the crowd, and found me. And she saw that I wasn't shocked. She saw that I already knew. That I'd known for a while. That the calm on my face was the calm of a man watching a plan land exactly where he'd aimed it. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Grant tried to grab her arm, and she yanked it away like he was on fire. 200 people were watching the 2 of them stand alone in the wreckage, and every single one of them now knew. I picked up my son, told him we were going for ice cream, and walked to the car. Reagan caught me in the parking lot, mascara running, voice shredded. "You did this. You told her." "No," I said, opening Micah's door. "You did this. At a lake house." Bianca just told the truth. I only made sure she had it in time. "We can fix this." She grabbed my sleeve. "Please, think about Micah. Think about the baby." "I am thinking about Micah," I said. "That's the only reason I'm being this calm. And the baby was never mine to think about." I got in the truck. She stood there in the parking lot in her wedding guest dress as I pulled away. And in the rearview mirror, she got smaller and smaller until she was nothing at all. She called me 11 times that night. I answered once, on the last one, because Micah was asleep, and I wanted her to hear how steady my voice was. "Everyone hates me," she said. And she was sobbing now. The kind of crying that isn't sorry for what you did, only sorry it stopped working. My mother won't look at me. Bianca blocked my number. People are posting about me. "I know," I said. "You're not going to defend me?" "Defend you from what?" I asked. "The truth? You're upset that people know what happened." "Not that it happened. That's the part you still don't get." There was a long silence, and then she tried the last card she had. "If you ever loved me, you'll help me fix this." And I told her the thing I'd been holding since the kitchen, since the pink cross, since the smile. "I did love you. That's why it took a private investigator, a lawyer, and a wedding to make me stop. You didn't just cheat. You looked me in the eye every night for months and let me believe I was building a family with you. Loving you is exactly what makes this so easy to walk away from." Then I hung up, turned off my phone, and slept better than I had in a year. She was served the next morning. I'd had Nadia file 3 days before the wedding. Reagan was so busy planning her big announcement, she never noticed the process server had already been to my lawyer's office. "You moved the money," she said. "When the papers hit the counter, you planned all of this." "I prepared," I said. "You planned. There's a difference. You planned a weekend." I just read the calendar. The divorce moved fast because the evidence was airtight and she had nothing to stand on. I kept the house. I got primary custody because a stable home beats a scandal every time. And by then, the whole town had heard the story. Reagan didn't fight it. She couldn't. Grant vanished within a month. No forwarding address. The way that kind of man always does the second there's a bill instead of a thrill. The baby, his baby, he wanted nothing to do with. And Bianca, who I thought might hate me for being the messenger, sent me a single text a few weeks later. "Thank you for respecting me enough to tell me the truth. Most people would have let me marry him." I never replied with anything more than "you'd have done the same." Because she would have. Months later, Reagan asked to meet. Neutral ground. A coffee shop. Her choice. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. "In a way sleep doesn't fix. I lost everything," she said. "You, Micah, Bianca, the house, even Grant. You didn't lose it," I said. "You spent it. You knew the price when you went up those stairs. You just didn't think I'd ever hand you the bill." She looked down at her hands. "I keep thinking about how calm you were at the wedding. Like you weren't even angry." "I was angry," I said, "for about a day, in the kitchen, the night I found out. Then I stopped being angry and started being accurate. Anger would have gotten me a shouting match and a lawyer telling me I'd hurt my own case. Accuracy got me my son and my house and a clean exit." She asked to see Micah more. I told her, on the schedule. Consistently. No surprises. That a boy needs a mother who is steady more than one who is sorry. She flinched at that, but she nodded. Because somewhere in her, she knew it was true. As I stood to leave, she asked the question I think she'd been carrying the whole time. "Do you ever miss us?" "I miss who I thought you were," I said. "Not who you turned out to be." And that was the truth. The whole truth. The only thing I had left to give her. The months after the divorce were the strangest kind of peace, because for a while I kept waiting for the other shoe, and it never came. There was no shoe left. Reagan moved in with her mother across town. The pregnancy she'd once wanted to announce at a wedding, she went through mostly alone. Grant didn't come back. Dave, who still checked on things out of habit, told me Grant had left the state entirely, chasing a job and a fresh set of people who didn't know his name yet. "Guys like that don't get punished," Dave said. "They just relocate the damage." Reagan gave the baby up not long after it was born. Adoption, handled quietly. And I never asked for the details because it wasn't mine to carry. What I carried was Micah. And that was enough. School drop-offs, science projects, Saturday soccer, the slow, ordinary rhythm of a life. You rebuild one dull good day at a time. About 6 months in, I started seeing someone. Her name was Claire, a teacher at Micah's school. And I did the whole thing slowly, carefully, honestly. because I'd learned exactly what the fast and careless version costs. She met Micah when it was right, and not a day before. She never asked me to trust her. She just showed up, again and again, until trust was the only reasonable conclusion. That's the difference nobody tells you about. Reagan spent 7 years telling me who she was. Claire just proved it in a season. I drove home to a house that was finally quiet in the good way. Micah was at the kitchen table doing a science project, and he looked up and asked, "Are we okay now, Dad?" I thought about the fight, the lie, the lake house, the folder, the garden, the parking lot. I thought about the version of me that smiled at a pregnancy test because he already knew he'd win. "Yeah, buddy," I said, "we're okay." And for the first time in a long time, that was completely true. Because she set a positive test on my kitchen table and told me to act surprised. She thought she was handing me a future. She never understood, not once, that she was only ever handing me a receipt. And I paid her back in full. Thank you for watching. Until the very end, wishing you happiness, peace, and a wonderful day ahead.